Can I make snarky remarks?
Always. Well, since I would expect nothing less.
Because, okay, we know Dan Didio, like you're the publisher, the president, right? But you're also a writer. You've written before.
Yeah.
But Ancient Enemies is your project. What can you tell us about it? And about just writing in general for you.
I've always had an interest in writing, but I never had you talk about discipline before, I never had the real discipline to make it a career choice. But I've always found ways to involve writing in a lot of things I've done. And it goes back, even when I was younger, I was working in publicity at ABC, and I was doing writing for some companies doing their publicities in comics. Because I tried to find ways to work comics into everything I did. I always had that love of comics. I actually did, when I was working in publicity, I actually did a crossover between Valiant Comics and All My Children. I got one of our actors to appear in a Valiant comic because I wanted to be involved in comic books in some way, shape, or form.
All My Valiant Children.
And All My Children, yeah, seriously, I really did. There's a Second Life of Dr. Mirage featuring Walt Willey from All My Children. So when I was when I worked in animation when I was at ABC.
So you're bragging on your writing credits by naming that?
Not, it's an entry point.
Just asking.
Okay, thank you. Anyways, and what I did then later on when I worked at ABC Children's Television in animation, I hired a lot of comic book writers to work on animation. Not because I wanted them to think they were good animation writers, but because I wanted to talk comics with them. So I was working with Len Wein, I was working with Marv Wolfman. We had actually developed a Metalman animated series I did it with Jeanette Kahn and Louise Simonson, which is one of the first times I had a chance to interact with the folks.
Did that one come out?
No, it never did.
Oh man!
What happened was...
How'd that not come out?
Because what happened was I had a block, an animation block built, which was going to be Metalman and Thunder Agents. It was going to be an hour-long block on Saturday morning.
Oh, that would have been great.
And it was all set to go. Marv was writing. I had Marv Wolfman writing Thunder Agents with Tom Grummett doing the designs. Had Louise Simonson doing Metalman Bible. And what happened was Disney bought ABC. And they knocked out our entire lineup, and they put in all the Disney product. And then I went off to. Then I actually started writing in animation myself for mainframe.
There's got to be a way to get Metalman done.
They're still trying. That's their argument. Listen, that's my favorite characters. I can admit it now. Metalmen are my favorite characters in DC, and I got a chance to write them, which was actually the last thing I wrote for DC Comics, and it felt fitting to me. It was
Who was the girl?
Platinum.
Platinum. Oh yeah, she was hot. Yeah.
She was for a metal robot.
And who'd you do that stuff?
Ross Andrew to start. But Garcia Lopez did some beautiful metal.
Oh, Garcia Lopez did it was like Ross's stuff was I got a lot of affection for it because I so much enjoyed the book when it came out. But it was when Garcia did it that it.
And I got a chance to. By the way, I got a chance to work with Garcia Lopez at Wednesday Comics.
And
I got a chance to. That was one of my favorites. One of the funniest things was I always wanted a piece of Garcia Lopez art. And what happened was we did this whole Metalman series in Wednesday Comics, and I wanted the art so bad, but I didn't want to say it while we were doing the book. So the book wraps up, and I go to Garcia Lopez. As soon as I turn to the last page, I want to buy one of those pages. He goes, Dan, I sold them all. He pre-sold them all. It was too late. I'm trying to be nice, and all of a sudden I got beat by everybody.
Right.
But I've always enjoyed writing, and I like the quirky corners. We joke about this all the time. Just the quirky characters, the craziness. I was never one for Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, or any of the big characters. I always liked the crazy edges. That's it. Yeah, exactly. But with Ancient Enemies actually started as an idea of mine, almost as Ultimate DC in a weird way. And it just was something that was formulating, and it just kept on moving in my head. And ultimately, when I was out of DC, it was something that, again, you talk about stories you want to tell. It's a story I wanted to tell. And I always liked the idea of conflict with people angry and hateful without even understanding the reason behind it. It's institutionalized. So my thought on the series is that we've created these races that are at constant war. They don't even remember what they're fighting about anymore. Now we have surrogates fighting on their behalf, either further removed fighting, and they don't understand what they're fighting about, but they can't stop the hatred. And the goal is to see if we can overcome those issues. And there's multiple layers taking place. It's a very personal story on one side. It's a story about a city, and then it's also a story about a universe. And it's fun to tell this on different levels, but see the same problem existing on all of them. And if you could fix it on the personal level, can we fix it on all the others moving forward? But in the same process, create a lot of fun characters to populate that world. And that's where the real joy comes in, because finding those voices for the characters, and that's been the interesting trip for this book, is finding the right voices. And you can write them and rewrite them, and you feel, it almost feels...
It's interesting the way that works.
What?
It's interesting the way that works, because some characters are a labor, like you describe. Other characters just pop out of the chute, ready
absolutely
to go.
Right.
And they never miss a beat for you. It's like they've been in your head all those years.
And it happens at the weirdest places too, because one of the characters that I thought was going to be tough was the easiest to write. Took over the book.
Yeah.
And then the character that I thought was going to be the lead, I struggled.
Yeah.
I erased it and threw it out, and it felt very forced, and it didn't feel conversational, you know, and I was having a real hard time with one of the characters, but it was interesting to see where you start to gravitate your interest to, because they're all reflections of portions of your personality, and so it's depending on which one's asserting itself most.
Or their observations, you know. It's just, characters can come from a lot of places, but most of them come from what you've absorbed, and who you are. But some also come out of sheer invention, because it's like hard to imagine what part of oneself a character like Geek would be.
Well, I know where that came from.
What, the lightning bolt radiator thing?
No, you're a character, you're a geek. No, but we joke about it, but it's the truth. So what happened in the process is we created Ancient Enemies, but Worley, this is Frank Miller Presents. So Frank Miller had to have something involved in this book. So I asked Frank to create a character for the book. And we had a running gag in his office about Brother Power the Geek for the longest time. And at that time, we're having that conversation.
Well, what happened? Okay, go. Okay, before he can pick up the story in a second. I just want to give you a little prologue to it, which is that when
it's a completely different character.
When Dan was an officer of DC Comics.
Officer.
He
had a badge and everything.
We were talking about projects to do, before I got involved in Superman. But we were in some show, and he asked me he asked me what my next project was in an interview, and on stage, and I said, well, the next thing that I've got a big announcement to make. I'm going to be bringing back the beloved Brother Power the Geek. Well, this went from being a joke. Dan started rolling around his damn head, and the next thing I know, he's talking serious, and I'm doing the craziest goddamn drawing in the world, and we both start falling in love with this guy. He becomes our, Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah, and it was funny because then we were talking about the movie Nightmare Alley, if you're talking about Nightmare Alley, and the whole concept of the geek character was back in the zeitgeist. So when I said I needed a character, the geek came into the series. And what I found the most interesting thing about it is it's a character that I would never create. I don't think that way. the way
you think in terms of like ill-tempered 30-foot women walking around, but you wouldn't think of anything as weird as a guy with birth defects.
No, I mean it's true, but that's what was wonderful, and it came in and it added a brand new dynamic in the book. And for me, when you have that happen, you're getting the special level of excitement.
Yeah, my main purpose when it comes to the Geek now
you have a purpose with the Geek?
My main purpose regarding the Geek now is to keep the artist from making him stand up.
Yes.
Because he can't have a proper spine.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. That's true. That was your first note.
Yeah.
We had it because I had the Danilo Beirut, who's the artist on the book, was drawing a lineup, and he put the Geek into the lineup with all the other characters, and
With perfect posture.
yeah, it was, and that was his first, literally his first note of the book. He's like, okay, and I get it immediately.
A child should be able to ride on this character's back. You know, it's just...
And there you have it.
Right. Perfect. Thank you very much, guys.
Sure, thank you.
I appreciate you sitting here and just telling stories to us.
No, this is fun. I'm not sure what you got usable out of that, but it's
no,
good.
I mean it's all great. I
Yeah.
love it. Like this is the type of stuff we want. I could do the, boilerplate interview thing, but I don't want to do that.
No. This is it's more. And honestly, this is the energy that we want to convey for the types of books we do. We're having fun. We really are. That's the joke.
Can I just say I've talked to Walt and Louise Simonson before, and they've talked a lot about Marvel in the '80s or just being in the comic scene in the '80s. I'm getting that from you guys.
Yeah,
and that stuff sounds fantastic to me, and what you're doing sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it.